Hello guys, welcome to Math Vantage. So in this lesson we'll be continuing doing the inequalities. So now remember we did in the first video we talked about the problem set 2 for the example 1. Now we're going to do example 2 whereby we're going to focus on A, C, A, C, the same thing, then we can do G. After doing G we can do I. Yeah, these are the questions that we are going to focus on, and the remaining ones you can do them, and if you find them like difficult you can comment with those answers, right? So now let's start. A, we have x minus 1, x minus 2, which is greater than 0, right? So the question says solve the following inequalities and indicate your solution as an interval on the number line, right? So whenever we solve inequalities, guys, always make sure that your equation is equated to 0. So if it's not equated to 0, just make sure that you equate it to 0 in this type of questions, right? So this is what we're going to do now. We're going to say x minus 1 is equals to 0, or x minus 2 is equals to 0. Therefore, x is equals to 1 or x is equals to 2. Right. After finding these two answers or these two values of x, we're going to write them on the interval. Right. So the interval, always you start with the negative infinity. Don't forget to write it, guys. And also the positive infinity. Then now we have 1 here, and then we have 2 here. Right. So after writing them like this, what do you do? Now we need the sign. We need a sign from 1 to positive to negative infinity, and we also want the sign from 1 up to 2, and we also need the sign from 2 to positive infinity. How can we get those signs? We start with the first one. Remember it's 1, 2. Let me name them like this. We're going to start with the first one. We have to take any value which is less than 1. So it means we can take 0, -1, -2, -3, and we plug it in the original equation that we have. We don't care about the answer. The only thing that we care about is the sign, right? So you can take, for instance, let's take 0. It's going to be 0 minus 1, 0 minus 2. The answer is 2, but then we're not going to write 2, but then because it's positive 2, only focus on the sign. It means we're going to have positive 2 here. We write it here. Can you guys see it? Then now we go to the second one. From 1 to 2, we check the sign. It means we need to choose any value between 1 to 2. We can take 1.5. And if we put 1.5 here, it's going to be 1.5 minus 1, and then 1.5 minus 2 is going to give us -1 over 4. But then, like I said, we don't care about the number. The only thing that we care about is the sign. It means we're going to have negative, because one can choose 1.1, 1.2, it's still the same. The only thing that we care about is the sign. Then for the third one, from 2 to positive infinity, you can choose 3, you can choose 2.1, you can choose 2.2. You choose any value which is greater than 2. Therefore, after plugging it in that equation, you're going to get the positive answer. Okay, what was the use, or why did we, or like why were we supposed to find those signs? How are those signs going to help us? So now, okay, let me write this one before. If our equation, it says it's greater than, right? If it's greater than, it tells us that we need to focus only on the positive, where we found the positive values. And then if our equation it says the equation of something less than 0. Therefore, we need to focus only on the negative values that we found. This is why we found the positive, negative, and the positive. So now, if we check our equation, it's x minus 1, x minus 2, it's greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, it means that we have to focus on what? On the positive signs. And where's the positive sign? It's from 1 to negative infinity, and also from 2 to positive infinity, which is 1 and 3. Can you guys see it? So therefore, how can we write those values or the answers? The answers is going to be an open bracket, negative infinity to 1. Remember, it's only greater than. We don't have greater than or equals to. If it's greater than or equals to, we're going to shade our circle, and then which represent what? The closed interval. And then if it's less than, we write an open circle, and then we're going to have an open interval. Can you guys see it? So it means we're going to have an open interval, then union. Then for 2, we can also see that we have what? An open interval here, and then we're going to have 2 to what? To positive infinity. This is the first answer, right? Because remember here it's a what? It's an open interval, and this sign goes this side, and this one goes this side, because we're only focusing on the positive values or the positive signs, right? So now let's do the example B. The example B, we are given 2x squared plus x, which is less than or equals to 1, right? So like I said, whenever you're given this type of questions, make sure that you equate your equation to 0. It means we're going to have 2x squared plus x minus 1, which is less than or equals to 0, right? So you need to find the values of x. How can you solve for x? You can use what do we call quadratic formula. If you want, you can use quadratic formula if you're not sure about the values. Therefore, we're going to have 2x minus 1, x plus 1. This is what we are going to have. Therefore, we are going to have 2x minus 1 is equals to 0, or x plus 1 is equals to 0. So you can see that now we are in this. Now we are solving the first example. After doing this, now it's the first example. So we are going to have 2x is equals to 1, whereby our x is equals to 1 over 2, or x is equals to negative 1. Then we write it in what? In the interval. In the interval we start with the negative infinity, then end with the positive infinity. Therefore, we're going to have negative 1 here, and then we're going to have 1 over 2. Can you guys see it? And then now, after doing this, what did we say? We say that we need to find the sign. The sign from negative 1 to negative infinity, which is number 1, and the sign from negative 1 to 1 over 2, which is number 2, and the sign from 1 over 2 to positive infinity, which is number 3. So how can we find the sign from negative 1 to negative infinity? We choose any value which is less than negative 1. You can choose negative 2 and then plug it in the original equation. Because you can see our original equation is 2x squared plus x. You're going to say 2 into, let's choose negative 2. It's going to be 2 into negative 2 squared plus into negative 2. It's going to give us positive 6 because I chose negative 2. You can choose negative 3, it's up to you. But the only thing that we care about, like I said, is the sign. It means we're going to have positive here. And then now we're going to choose a value between negative 1 to 1 over 5. 1 over 2. You can choose 0. After choosing 0 and then plug it in the original equation, you're going to get the negative sign. It means here it's going to be negative. And then now we go to the third one. From 1 to 2, from 1 over 2 to positive infinity, and then we can choose 3 or you can choose 4 or 5, it's up to you. Then after plugging it in the original equation, you're going to get positive. Therefore, after finding this the signs, we said then now we check our original equation. Our original equation is 2x squared plus x, which is less than or equals to 1, right? I said that if our sign is greater than or equals to, then we focus on the positive sign. And then if our sign is less than or equals to, we focus on the negative sign, right? So we can see now our sign is less than or equals to. It means we're going to focus on the negative signs that we found. So when we check the interval, the negative sign is between -1 and 1 over 2. So it means we're going to use those values. So it means it's between -1 and 2. And then because we have it's less than and equals to, it means the circles we need to shade them, right? So it means this one it has to go this side and then this one has to go this side. They are just going to meet each other, right? So it's going to be, our answer is going to be -1 and 1 over 2 closed brackets, because these are the values from -1 and 1 over 2, or these are the values for the negative sign. Can you guys see it? This is how we do it. So now we are going to the third example. So let me just erase some few things here. Okay guys, so now let's do letter G, which is the example 3. It's x squared less than 3, right? So how can we solve this? Remember, if we had x squared is equals to 4, how can we solve this? We can introduce the squared process so that we can introduce the square root so that we can remove the square. Therefore, we're going to get x plus or minus 2, right? So meaning the values that we have is x is equals to -2 or x is equals to 2, right? And also if we had x squared is equals to, let's say, 2, right? Then we were going to introduce the square root. Therefore, our x was going to be x is equals to plus or minus square root of 2. Can you guys see it? So now, how can we solve this one? This one, to find the values of x, we can say x is equals to plus or minus. Okay, before, let's not use this method because I'm going to confuse you. Like I said, in this question 2, we said we have to make sure before we can solve our equation, we have to make sure that we equate it to 0. Means we're going to have x squared minus 3, which is less than 0. Therefore, how can we solve this? We are going to have the bracket. Therefore, we are going to have x plus the square root of 3, then x minus the square root of 3. This is what we are going to have, right? Which is less than 0, right? So it means the values that we are going to equate is x plus square root of 3 is equals to 0, or x minus square root of 3 is equals to 0. Therefore, it's going to be x is equals to -3, or x is equals to the square root of 3, right? This is what we are going to have. Then now, after finding these values, what do? We put them in the number line. We put them in the number line. Remember, we start with the negative infinity, then positive infinite, right? Therefore, we're going to have negative square root of 3, and then we're going to have square root of 3. And the square root of 3 is something like 1 point something, right? So let's write it down like this. Remember, now we need to find what? The sign. How can we find the sign? We need to find a sign where from negative square root of 3 to negative infinity, which is the first one, and also the sign from negative square root of 3 to positive square root of 3, which is the second one, and the last sign, which is from square root of 3 to positive infinity, which is the third one. So now we need to choose a value which is less than negative square root of 3, right? You can choose, because remember square root of 3 is 1.7, it means here it's going to be negative 1.7. You can choose negative 2, negative 3, and then after choosing it, you'll see that it's going to give you positive, and then here it's going to be negative, and then here it's going to be positive, right? Then after finding them like this, we know what we're supposed to do. We check the original equation. The original equation is x squared minus 3. It's not this one. It's x squared. It's less than 3, right? This is the original equation. So because of this sign, it means we have to focus only on the negative sign. So it means we are going to focus from negative square root of 3 to positive square root of 3 only, because from negative square root of 3 to negative infinity is positive, so we cannot use this one. And also from positive square root of 3 to positive infinity, it's positive, but then the sign is negative, so it means we cannot use this one, but then we're going to use the values between negative square root of 3 and positive square root of 3. So meaning the values that we have, it's what? Now we are going to check, or it's only less than, not equals to. It means it's an open interval. Can you guys see it? Means it's an open interval. Means we're going to have negative square root of 3 to. This is what we are going to have. This is the answer. So now let's go to D. How can we do D? D is equals to x cubed minus x squared less than or equals to 0. So we can take out the common factor, which is x squared. We'll be left with x minus 1 is equals to 0. Therefore, we can equate x squared is less than or equals to 0, or x minus 1 is less than or equals to 0. Therefore, our x is equals to 0, and then our x is equals to 1. Can you guys see it? And now let's write down in the interval. We have negative infinity, positive infinity, we have 0, and we have 1. Then now we need to find what? We need to find the sign. Now we already know how we find the sign. We're going to take any value which is less than 0. You can take negative 1 and then plug it in the original equation. We're going to get negative, and then choose any value between 0 to 1 and then plug it in the original equation. We're going to get the positive value, the negative value, and then we take any value which is greater than 1. Therefore, it's going to give us positive value, right? After writing down like this, we know that we need to check the original equation. You're not supposed to write this whenever you're solving this question. I'm just writing it down so that you can see when I say the original equation, which one am I talking about. So after writing it down like this, you're going to check the sign of the original equation. The sign of the original equation is less than or equals to. And like I said, whenever it's less than or equals to, it means we are going to focus only where we found negative sign, right? And then if it was positive or equals to, we're going to focus only on where we found the positive sign. So now we're going to focus where we found the negative sign. And the negative sign, it's from 0 to negative 1, and also from 1 to 0. Can you guys see it? So we can see that it's a closed interval, means we have to share it we have an enclosed interval, we have to share it, right? It means this one, it has to go to here from 1 to 0, and then this one, it has to go from 0 to negative infinity. So it means we're going to have an open interval for negative infinity, right? Which is this one to what? To 0. And then we have the closed interval there, union. And then from 0, it's a closed interval, we can see it. And then we write 0 to what? It goes up to 1. And then also our 1 is a closed interval. It means it's going to close it like this. Therefore, that's it for this example 2 questions. So if you find this video useful, kindly like and subscribe. Thank you.